You want to eat healthy and you're doing your best. But the grocery store, it can feel like a minefield of marketing buzzwords. Multigrain, all natural, lightly sweetened, or made with real fruit. They all sound healthy, right? But are they? We're going to look at the sneaky and misleading world of food marketing under a magnifying glass today so that you know how to shop smart at the grocery store. I'm Dr.Vickie Petz Kasper. I practiced obstetrics and gynecology for 20 years until I landed on the other side of the sheets as a very sick patient. When my own body betrayed me, I took a handful of pills to manage my disease and another handful to counteract the side effects. My health was out of control. Through surgery, medications, and lots of prayers, I regained my strength only to face another diagnosis. My doctor challenged me to make radical changes through lifestyle medicine. Now I feel great and I want to help you make changes that make a difference. Healthy Looks Great on You podcast takes you to many medical schools so you can learn the power of lifestyle medicine. If you're ready to take control of your health, you're in the right place. Whether you're focused on prevention or you're trying to manage a condition, I'll give you practical steps to start your own journey toward better health, because healthy looks great on you. Being healthy isn't just about willpower, it's about knowledge. And once you learn how to spot these tricks, you'll shop smarter, eat better, and feel more in control. This is episode 169. Don't fall for marketing tricks in the grocery store. You really do want to eat healthy, and you check the labels and try to make good choices. But let's be honest, grocery shopping can feel like walking through a maze of healthy sounding words that don't always mean what you think. There are 8 common phrases that show up everywhere on cereals, yogurts, granola bars, juices, and they sound wholesome and smart and safe. But behind the scenes, they are misleading at best and downright deceptive at worst. By the end of this episode, though, you are going to be a label reading pro. You'll learn how food companies use marketing tricks to make junk food sound healthy and how you can spot the truth with a quick glance at the label, because who's got time to stand in the grocery store aisle and read all the labels? I will say that if you missed my episode on reading a nutritional label, then you should go back and listen to that. And I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's episode number 115. Or you can go to my website, healthylooksgreatonYou.com, and just type label in the search bar and it will come up. But if you're ready to decode the deception, let's get started. We're going to go to mini medical school, and today our class is psychology. Psychology is an important part of overall health, and marketers know it. That's why they spend millions and millions of dollars on food packaging. They're counting on you to be pulled in by the front of the package, and the last thing they want you to do is turn it over and read the nutrition label, because that's where the facts are listed. That's why I wanted you to go back and listen to episode 115. But today, you're going to learn that the front of the package is just bait, and there's always a hook. Here's what I'm talking about: calming earth tones so that it looks natural, farm scenery so that it feels wholesome. And there are some buzzwords that sound really good, but they're not. And we call all of that a health halo. And what they're trying to do is give you the impression that unhealthy food is good for you. Today, we're going to look at 8 common terms that are used on the front of the package labeling. And then I'm going to give you just one piece of advice that is going to change the way you do your grocery shopping. So stay tuned. Let's start with those 8 labels. The first one, and you will see this everywhere, is multigrain. And that sounds so healthy because fiber is so important in our diet to have a healthy gut. And so we want to have greens in our diet. But multigrain? No, that's not what we need. It's whole grains that we need. And you see what happens? They can use the word multigrain when they just mean processed grains, but more than one of them. So they could have one or two or even 10 grains that have been entirely stripped of their nutrients, and they can still call it multigrain. And that sounds like a healthy mix of grains, but it's not. Even if the flour is wheat flour and it's enriched and refined, then it's just an unhealthy grain in disguise. And what you really need is whole grains that still have the bran and the germ, because that's where the fiber is. That's where the B vitamins are, antioxidants. All of that is found in whole grain. So what you really should look for is 100% whole grain. Otherwise, multigrain is usually a trick. And a little twist on that is number 2, made with whole grains. Okay? How much whole grains? If it doesn't say 100%, it might be only 2%, and the other 98% might be pure junk. So always look for 100% whole grain and make sure the whole grain, like whole wheat or whatever grain we're talking about, is the very first ingredients, because otherwise you could just be getting a trace of whole grain so that they can legally make the claim, and the rest is just junk. Number 3 is one of my favorites because it sounds so incredibly good, and it's not. All natural. Well, why would that be bad? Well, first of all, there's absolutely no regulation in this claim. They can say all natural and it means nothing because there's no definition of that term. And even high fructose corn syrup, which I think we can all agree is terrible for you, could be considered natural. And it makes it sound like it's coming straight from the earth and hasn't been processed. And it makes you feel safe, but it's not regulated. Number 4 is no added sugar. Well, that sounds good because we want to cut back on the sugar in our diet because it has inflammatory properties and it's bad for your heart and your blood vessels and your brain. But no added sugar can still have tons of sugar. It can have juice concentrates or something like evaporated cane juice, brown rice syrups. These are all just sugars in disguise. And listen, the type of sugar absolutely matters. Sugar from fruit, healthy. Sugar from processed foods, very unhealthy. And speaking of fruit, that leads us to the next deceptive marketing term, which is made with real fruit. Okay, how much real fruit? Like, did you add a fleck of watermelon and call that made with real fruit? And it's not fresh fruit either. I mean, it sounds like they're cutting up apples or putting whole blueberries in there, but it may just be juice concentrate. And listen, that is not healthy. You cannot eat a fruit gummy and pretend you're eating fruit. And that leads us to number 6, which is lightly sweetened. That's a vibe, not a fact. What does lightly even mean? There's absolutely no rule behind that phrase. What you should do instead is check the number of grams of sugar. There's no lightly sweetened term according to the FDA. So you could have 10 grams of sugar that's added and still just wear this label and pretend. And I recommend that you get all of your sugar from whole food sources like oranges and bananas, blueberries and strawberries, carrots and potatoes. And coming in at number 7 is probably one of your favorites, organic. And yes, organic is great if you're trying to reduce exposure to pesticides, but it doesn't mean healthy. You can have organic candy and organic potato chips. It only means that the ingredients were grown without synthetic pesticides or fertilizer. But organic sugar is still sugar, and an organic cookie is still a cookie. And last on the list is another buzzword, and that is gluten-free. And listen, if you have celiac disease or if you're one of 10% of people who have a gluten sensitivity, that's a big deal. But again, gluten-free cookies are still cookies. And gluten-free makes it sound like that it's low carb or low sugar or low anything bad. And what it really means is no gluten. What is gluten? It's a protein that's found in the whole grain. But unless you have celiac disease or a gluten sensitivity, there's really not a benefit to trying to eat a gluten-free diet. And you may just get tricked into eating more junk food because you think because it says gluten-free that it's better for you, and it's not. So here's what you should do instead. Check the ingredient list, and typically the fewer the ingredients, the better. And if there is no label, that means you picked it up in the produce aisle, and that's best. Second is look at that nutrition label, and remember it's on the back. You can see how much added sugar there is. You can look at the fiber content, how many milligrams of sodium there is. And I have episodes on all of this. If you're interested, just go to my website, type whatever you're looking for in the search bar. And before I give you my number one tip, I have a challenge for you. I want you to be a label detective. In fact, I would say as soon as you finish this episode, go to your pantry and just pick up a package of food. Look at those claims that are made on the front of the packaging and see if you have fallen for one of these tricks. But then I want you to flip it over and read the label, the nutrition labels on the back, and see if the hype matches the ingredients. And don't worry, there's no test on this for many medical school, and you don't have to be perfect, but I do want you to be aware. Here's your one tip. Never look at the front of the package. There is literally no information there that you need. Flip it over and read the back label. If you want to take it to the next level, then try to eat foods that have one ingredient, like spinach or beans, because real food doesn't need a marketing tip. If this episode has made you look at your grocery cart a little differently, that's a win. I recommend that you go back and scroll through old episodes to get more tips like this. But if you learned something really helpful and new today, would you consider subscribing to this podcast or leaving a review? Even better, share this episode with a friend who's trying to get healthy too, because we need to spread the truth and not marketing hype, because healthy looks great on you and all of us.
The information contained in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not considered to be a substitute for medical advice. You should continue to follow up with your physician or healthcare provider and take medication as prescribed. Though the information in this podcast is evidence-based, new research may develop and recommendations may change.